Hey folks, so today I want to talk about three core ideas deeply intertwined. One, the nature of the problem that you're solving. Connection is an optimization problem. Part of that is also the second part of what we're building is relationship flourishing platform. Yeah, and that is also a very human tech problem, very soluble problem, as we'll see. The third part of it is why are we embedding AI onto these platforms? And the third part, the reason we had to answer that is where we're actually going to start this conversation off. So there's been a lot of anti-AI sentiment, a lot of anger, a lot of hatred. And I want to take a moment to obviously acknowledge that and give my take on how we, considering what's happening out there, considering how people feel about it, and considering that we want to build this for not just 1,000 people, not just 10,000 people, but hopefully 100 million people and beyond. How do we think about the optics of this and people's actual feelings about this? So, first thing to say, remark upon this is that it's well deserved, right? The anti-AI sentiment is well deserved because of the way things have been done in the past. The very companies that are building these, the very leaders that are building these, if you look at their track records, if you look at the things that the Instagrams of the world, the Facebooks of the world, the addictive platforms of the world, their dark patterns, they're designing the algorithms and the feeds to enrage people, to keep them hooked, to keep them siloed, right? All of those things, we completely get that. And a part of that, a part of the hatred against AI is overlaying these initial set of emotions of anger towards the new thing in tech, which is AI. So that's a part of it. We're going to talk more about this anti-AI sentiment in another conversation with a lot more nuance, but just I think it's because AI is such a huge part of our platform, right, of solving both the connection optimization problem and the relationship flourishing problem. We absolutely do need to acknowledge that. Acknowledge people's the optics and how people feel about it. So that's that. We also obviously look at people's relationship to technology. Most people who use technology, they're not happy with the actual usage of technology, right? They use it because they are just hooked onto it, they're addicted to it, but it's not a wholesome relationship. They don't feel like they are getting true wholesome value out of it. And again, that's something that we've taken deep note of. Again, we'll talk about that in this conversation, we'll talk about this in other conversations in terms of how we're going about designing the platform. So first thing I'll remark upon is that the reason we love AI, there are a lot of reasons we love AI. The fact that we could create artificial minds, that just is endlessly fascinating on a scientific level. But beyond that, on a practical level, our North Star is this utopia where everyone has the best relationships, they're these deeply fulfilling, these rich lives. We live in a post-scarcity world where people are living these lives full of passion and purpose. The only way to make that world possible is through large-scale deployment of AI. This is just simple facts. Again, I can lay out the case for this in another conversation. It'll be a pretty long case. But the true fact of the matter is, a lot of the things that we want in life, we want the best tutors, we want the best entertainment, we want the best comfort, we want the best everything. And if you want to provide the best of all of these things to people, not just the top 1%, the top 0.1%, which has been the case, if you want to do that at scale for millions and billions of people, you got to bring down the cost of everything. You got to bring down the cost of intelligence. And the only way to bring down cost of intelligence is by building artificial intelligence, which can scale to trillion times human level intelligence in terms of some totality of it, so that we can deploy that at scale, so that you have 100 agents working for you to help you live your best life, and you got your robots doing your daily chores, and you got it doing everything that you want it to, so that you can do the creative stuff, you can do the exploratory stuff, you can do the learning stuff, the stuff that really matters, right? So that's a longer term vision, but we understand where we are. Of the mistakes, I'll get to the mistake in a second, but I just want to talk about if you can't paint the future that's painted by a lot of these companies, they don't really talk about what is AI going to mean for you in your daily life in the year 2035, in the year 2040, right? AI as your life coach, is your companion, growing with you, helping you learn and grow and play and all of that. And people don't. This is another thing that another pet peeve of ours. I'm actually writing an article about this, about the fact that we don't have a Carl Sagan today who can paint the future of what that utopia looks like, the post-custody world where people lead these beautiful lives. And that's what we want to make possible. That's what we want people to be able to see in the first place, and then make that possible in the shorter term, in the shorter to longer term. Beyond this, though, we obviously do believe that there's been a lot of problems with the tech ecosystem, and some players, they'll tarnish the reputation of the entire tech industry. Anything that's tech, anything that's AI is seen as this thing which is meant to be predatory, which is meant to keep us on these treadmills, to just, drip by drip, just keep us running. It didn't have to be that way. Tech does not have to be that way. You could have imagined an Instagram alternative that could have inserted one and that was actually good for people, that didn't really engage in the kinds of algorithmic behaviors that the current Instagram does. Well, the only Instagram. What happens though is people, and something happens. We've got this bias. When what outcome eventuates, we believe that there was a foregone conclusion that was inevitable, and then we don't look at all of the possible things that could have happened that were still in the midst, in the possibilities. Like there are still people who deeply believed in this idealistic world who could have won, had things just been a bit different, right? We just live in one reality, so we don't obviously focus on those other things. But the key thing to remember is there are a lot of idealistic people who believe in this AI for good for all, abundance for all, the best for all, and they are fighting to bring that world to the masses, to the 8 billion people. It's crucial to remember that. Another crucial fact to remember is that we live in a parallel world. So if one platform wins, it wins massively. To the degree that it seems like that particular paradigm was inevitable. But parallel also means that something could start from a small place, from humble origins, and could then overcome the odds and then become the predominant way that people do that thing. It's happened countless times, and that's again the hope. We remind ourselves every day of this Margaret Mead quote: "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." There you go. Another reason for the anger is just the sheer callousness in the rollout of these technologies, where we are seeing layoffs of 100k, 200k people every few months, and just the sheer carelessness. The transition could have been a lot more thoughtful. In fact, one of our meta goals at Elinity is to help make this transition period to the post-AGI world a lot more painless, and even infuse it with fun and meaning. We've got some ideas on that front that we'll share in another conversation. One of the reasons we are so bullish on AI is we have this vision of AI in everyone's lives that grows with them, that is deeply attuned to the values, the goals, the beliefs, their personality, that is deeply aligned with the longer term flourishing. It's not meant to extract anything. It's not meant to keep them on a treadmill. It's designed to think of that as a manifestation of your higher self, to use some hippie speak. That AI can be made possible. I don't even like using the word AI for that particular thing, especially because one of our moonshot projects in Elinity that we plan to pursue pretty soon, hopefully pretty soon, is building a mind that houses the AI. This AI will be growing with you, with every single person till the very last day, and It'll be the companion, occasionally it'll be the mentor, the guide, the relationship body, the matching body, social connection body, all of that. And it'll help people amplify their very human drives of connecting and learning and growing and exploring and playing and all of that. Again, the very vision is only possible with this entity. You can call it AI, you can call it whatever you want to call it. But there's so much utility in having this form factor, having this thing in your life and everyone's lives, that it'd be a tragedy not to do it just because the tech world makes certain choices that tarnish the entire industry. And we won't allow that to happen. So, to the central question of why have we taken an AI first approach? There are two things to remember. One, connection with your people, your soulmates, your highest quality, best person, and friends for that matter, collaborators and all of that. But to keep it simple, just your people is the highest leverage thing, the highest, I don't want to call it ROI, but the single biggest unlock you could have for just more love, more joy, more of all of the good stuff that you want to have in your life. This is factually true. You can't debate that. So that's one fact. The other fact is that scalable, perfect matching, optimal matching is only possible with an AI. These systems that we call AIs. Because you gotta crunch so much data. Everyone is so deeply contoured. They're so rich, so many dimensions, so many layers to them, so many aspects to their personality. And if you want to do best fit matching, then you got to be able to understand this person in depth, the way no one understands this person. The matchmakers have been a thing in the past, doing a very rudimentary version of this. But AI would blow matchmakers out of the water, because AIs can process data at a 1,000x rate, a million x rate than compared to your matchmakers, and they not just the rate but also the sheer volume of data. So matchmaker might be able to go through 100 profiles and cross-reference that. Okay, would you be a good fit for this person, or rather would this person be a good fit for you? Nope, let's move on. So they do like 100, 1,000, 10,000 maximum. With an AI, we're talking of being able to do 10 million, 100 million, possibly if you want to, if that's your radar of scope of possible partners, 100 million, 200 million, beyond. And you can actually imagine this in a country like China, where like the possible pool of partners could be in the hundreds of millions of people. Actually, that's not going to be true, but you could reasonably imagine that. And you could see that in the world of 2100, where we got, probably not in the world of 2100, but in the world of 2200, where we got 20 billion people, 10 billion people in orbits, living in O-rings, and some of them on Moon, some of them on Mars, some of them living in Antarctica, and all of that. The sheer number of people, and geography should not be a constraining factor. So if you want to do this at scale, if you want to connect the best with people at scale, there is no other way, just because there's so much data to consider, to process, to analyze. So when you take a first principles approach, as we did, you come to the inevitable conclusion that what you got to do is you got to get this person, you got to build a really good database, as many people as you can. The more, the merrier, right? And eventually that's the end goal, because everyone wants to connect with the best fit people. Even if you got your soulmates, if you use others to find your soulmate, you might still want to connect. If you travel to a new place, you want to find your kinds of people in that place. So you might want to start a project, you might want to find your best fit collaborators. So again, this connection problem is the most, when you're building something, you kind of have to get caught in these fictions. But factually, when you look at the quality of life, when you look at everything, when you look at the human organism, having the best people in our lives, the most aligned people, nothing even comes close to determining the quality of life. Just look at a partner. I mean, so many studies have actually looked into this, but intuitively, if you got your soulmate level partner, everything else is like 100 times better. If you don't, or if you got a miserable relationship, everything's like 100 times worse. If you're alone, you just want to be able to access the sheer beauty of the experiences that you can only have with someone else. So yeah, this is a pretty important problem, the most important problem in our own humble estimation. Because it's not just about, we could, theoretically, could get one person, let's say that we want to build the ultimate matching system, ultimate matchmaker. Then you could take one, even then let's say there was a king and he wants to find a groom for his princess, for his daughter. So what he could do, I mean, this actually might have happened in the past, but this is a good parallel, it's a good analogy of how things that were only possible for the very richest, or the most powerful, or the most privileged, they will become accessible to every single person on the planet. The best tutor, the best therapist, the best listener, the best matchmaker, the best relationship coach, the best relationship buddy. I mean, most of these things were not even possible at the scale that AI makes it possible. Because, to use the example for tutor, with AI, you got an always-on tutor that's personalized to you, the way a human tutor could never, unless they devoted their entire life to understanding you at a very deep level. So the kinds of experiences are going to be possible in the near future. They were simply not possible pre-AI. Pre the kind of AI that's going to emerge. People get stuck on the current AI paradigm, which people call it clankers and all of that. But at some point, it's going to be a lot more sophisticated. It's going to have emotional intelligence. This is one of our moonshot, right? The reason we are building this Elinity mind of Lumi is we want to build this emotionally intelligent architecture that's aligned by default. And think about the value of having that AI in your life, helping you achieve your goals and live your best life. So that's what we want to make possible. So again, looking at the factors, you got this person, and they've got so many dimensions to them. And there are so many other people that you got to look at. You can exclude lots of people based on some superficial criteria, but there are so many lower level details that you got to look at to find if you're talking of the absolute best fit matching system, the ultimate matching system, like a system that's so good that it puts Cupid to shame. If you're talking that kind of a system, that's what we're striving to build over here, then you got to look at that person at depth that is simply not possible unless a psychologist has devoted their entire life to studying this person. And even then, they will not be able to reach the level of insight that the AI would. And partly that's just because of the sheer volume of data that you gotta look at, that humans just can't handle, right? Our brains are limited. And that wouldn't be sufficient, by the way, because a therapist would also have to look at those deep levels for, if you have a pool of 100 possible candidates, 100 people. So it is not scalable. But if you want to provide best fit matchmakers, the best matchmakers, so every single person on the planet, there is no other way. Because we want to do this at scale, we want to have this AI matchmaker be in the pockets and the homes of every single person on the planet. Everyone wants to have the best social life, the best relationships. Everyone should. And everyone will, with Elinity. Having said all this, we understand that right now, possibly only 10% of people would feel comfortable with having an AI do this, very embedding an AI at the level of their connections and social life and matching and all of that, matchmaking. Our bet is that the value of something of this sort, if executed correctly, with long-term flourishing of both the individual and our civilization of our species in mind, if done thoughtfully, if done in a participatory way, if done in a way that people really feel bought in, and they feel that this AI is really looking out for them because it's deeply attuned to them, it's been aligned for them, on them, with them, that has learned from them, grown with them, then you completely change the dynamics. And that's what we're striving to do. So what we think is that there's 10% of people who are going to be comfortable right now. That number is going to rise to 90% by the year 2035 as a value, as a utility of having AI play these roles in our lives becomes apparent, becomes overwhelming. In the meantime, obviously, to get from this point to that point, we want to be extremely thoughtful and we want to bring people along. Again, that's a huge part of why we plan to start this series called Elinity. I mean, we'll have a different name, but we want to have this Elinity podcast where we will discuss with people who have thought deeply about these issues, about human relationships and social connection and all of these things that we are exploring and we are building around and on, and work with them to build a platform that really takes into account human psychology and human flourishing. Because at the core, that's what we are building for. Now let's talk about some of the details of the problem. The reason the connection problem is a real problem is because of the random nature of life. Let's say you live in New York City. Even if you're someone super social, you're only going to meet maybe 10,000 people by your 30s. If you want to find your soulmate level person, let's say you want to start a family, it's extremely unlikely. And the odds of them being in New York City in the first place are pretty low, depending on your level of pickiness. And this is also one of the interesting things, that if you can afford to be more picky, counterintuitively, we will have better relationships. Because a lot of people settle, most people settle in a way. And settling is not a good recipe for, well, having the best relationship. But again, coming back to the point, because of the random nature of life, it's not like you are going to be, and this happens for a tiny handful of people, again, because of the mechanics of luck, but luck is not a strategy when it comes to making the most important decision of your life, who to spend the rest of who to build a long-term relationship with, who to have as a long-term partner. So that is a no-brainer. But back to this. The reason it's so difficult is because of the random nature of life. Even if you're super social, going back to our point, it's extremely unlikely that you'd find your soulmate level person. And that's why we don't believe in soulmates, by the way. I thought a lot about this topic. For some people, they believe in soulmates because, the stuff that they've read, watched and stuff, and they never end up finding their soulmate, but they had that spark, that desire, that hope. And there are people who are lucky enough to find that person when they're in the uni and they grow with that person and they're like, this was ideal, like this was exactly what I wanted when I was a kid, right? And again, those are the lucky handful. Those are some of the people that, when you watch some of those interviews of 80, 90-year-old couples, they talk about how having this person has just been the greatest blessing, and it's just been the best journey, the best adventure together. And that's a tiny handful of people that are lucky. But again, luck is not a strategy. So what do? You can't do much unless there was a system, this platform, that had a database of millions of people, and that had an AI represent you, and an AI that understood you at a deep level, and that AI could converse with other AIs. So think of these as matchmaking agents. And then they could even simulate and model your potential relationship and your potential dynamics. And if there was a match, then they could then forward the person over to you, and then you'd make the determination based on what you saw. But your AI would do the pre-filtering, the pre-sorting, all of that. And even, not just that, that's the basic level stuff, but do a deep level simulation that could even, at an advanced, this is again something we'll be working towards, even because it would have a digital twin of you, and that other AI would have a digital twin of that person, it could actually put you in a context and see the dynamics and see whether they work out or not. Because we don't want to waste time. The reason dating apps are just so dystopian is that you're on this treadmill and you're relying on luck to find your person. And you're like, okay, you know what, yeah. But imagine if the first person that was suggested to you was your person. Imagine how much time you'd save, how much emotional energy you'd save. And imagine for a lot of people having, so, you know, the trauma ends up happening, some breakups can add so much some relationships can add so much baggage that then affect future relationships. So you can do so much again, I know some people are going to be a big fan of the word optimization, but you can reduce so much needless suffering by optimizing this process, and you can unlock so much additional value in terms of joy and love and beauty and wonder and all of the things that we care about and want. So this is about the connection part. I hope that that's pretty obvious, pretty intuitive now. For relationship building, again, most people would benefit from having a relationship coach. Many people don't have relationship skills. You know, again, we are humans, we're all learning. And this is going to become such a normal part of people's lives in the future, having a relationship coach, relationship buddy that helps you. A relationship coach and a relationship buddy, it's going to be different roles, same AI. It's going to be a part of your life. There'll be a physical device. It won't be initially be a phone, because Elinity is going to be an app form factor, but over time it's going to be a different form factor, and it'll help you not just de-escalate and not just nudge you towards being more thoughtful, being more, you know, all of the things that you want to be. Because when you get into a relationship, you want that relationship to be the best, but sometimes because of the patterns that you might have picked, because of all sorts of things, you're not able to do that relationship the justice that you wanted to do. You're not able to give it your very best, and we sometimes self-sabotage, sometimes we do things that we don't want to do because of all sorts of reasons. But if there's an AI that can nudge you, that can guide you, that again has deep context in both you and your partner, there's so much utility in that. And it can also occasionally act as a relationship therapist when you need to. It can act as a relationship coach. It can act as a relationship buddy to not just do handle some of the difficult stuff, but even infuse your relationship with more spark and joy and wonder and laughter and merriment. Right, it would, because it knows stories and stuff, and it can even initiate conversations. This is more advanced stuff, where again people would feel less comfortable about this, but it could really be like, I don't want to use that phrase, like, you know, like a part of your relationship at a deep level. Eventually that's going to be the future, because people will just be that comfortable with it, but it'll take time to own, because this kind of trust is going to have to be owned, and we will ensure that we'll own that trust over the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But anyways, there's so much utility in having this AI be a part of you, engage in these, you know, this Elinity relationship suite of games that are designed to bring you closer with a huge amount of fun and exploration and all of that. Play is such a huge part of relationship building, and we build that suite of games to bring that fun into relationship building, bring that play into relationship building. Otherwise it would have just been, you know, and that was the initial approach. Build this relationship therapist, relationship coach that can come in handy, that can even nudge you, not just, you know, come in handy. There are like 3 levels, right? The level of difficult stuff, so that's when you need a therapist. And there's maintaining the stuff, that's when you need nudges. And the positive stuff, that's where AI could add some joy and little moments of laughter and play and joy, sparks and all of that. So we want to have AI, our Lumi, operate at all of those 3 different levels, depending on how, as and when you want it to be, what you want it to be. So I think that should be it for now. There's a lot more to speak on this topic. On the topic of connection, math and science and art, and relationship math and relationship science and art, and what exactly does an AI look like in this, and we'll have lots of those conversations. But this should suffice for now, and thank you so much for the time. I'll catch you soon. Take care.